Hello everybody, my name is the Deuteron Doctor, and today we're going to be talking about how to play Slosher. Sorry about my voice, by the way. I have a cold, and my nose is quite stuffy, and my throat is super dry. Anyways, the Slosher in Splatoon 3, in my opinion, is actually really good right now. It's not meta, obviously, but it's really good as just a general Slosher. I mean, that's really all I could classify it as. The kit for the Slosher is the Splat Bomb and the Triple Ink Strike, and with that kit, I feel like it has a lot of offensive and supporting, viability, and the fact that you can aim upwards to hit an enemy and directly at them to get a one-hit, in heavy quotation marks, kill is also great for the weapon. It's not the best for painting, but it is good for trying to get kills and make sure that your teammates can paint the stage without having to worry about your enemies too much. The best game modes for the Slosher, in my opinion, are going to be Splat Zones, Tower Control. I was gonna say Clan Blitz, but that's not really Slosher's best game mode. It's kind of bad for that. Anyways, the reason that Splat Zones is one of the better game modes for Slosher is because of the fact that it can paint fairly decent, and with the Triple Ink Strike, that just accentuates the fact that it can cover a large amount of area with very little effort. You know, if you have your Slosher and your kit and you have a special charge, you could throw a bomb, slosh a couple times, do your Triple Ink Strike, slosh a couple times, and throw a bomb again. So that just really makes covering turf in a pickle really, really good. And the reason for Tower Control is because of the same fact. The tower only has a very limited amount of space on it. And with the Triple Ink Strike, you can clear the tower 3 times. And with the bomb, if you get one bomb on each side of the tower, you can clear it another time. As well as the fact that the Slosher, if you aim it up, it can cover the whole tower on its own. It's a very powerful weapon in the right hands. In order to aim with the Slosher, it's honestly pretty easy. You can predict where your enemy is going if we're talking about brushes that travel really fast or the new roller that's going to be added to the game. In general use, you don't really have to do much unless you're facing dualies or one of those faster weapons. The aiming is pretty straightforward. You just look at your enemy, you slosh at them. Again, I'm going to point out that you can aim upward above your enemy and then straight at them to get a quote-unquote one-hit kill, even though it's 2 hits. It just hits them at the same time. But it is very good, and I don't think it has a lot really technically that you have to do. It's just an overall good Slosher. Anyways, the best gear for this weapon is going to probably be Ink Recovery Up, Swim Speed Up, for not the reason you'd think, I'll get back to that, as well as Sub Power Up, Ink Resistance, and Sub Defense Up, as well as Thermal Ink or Haunting, depending on what your fancy is, as well as Object Shredder. The reason for Ink Recovery Up is obviously because Slosher's not super ink hungry, but yeah, there's times where you could run out of ink pretty fast, especially when you're throwing bombs. The reason for Swim Speed Up, sure, it could be used to go to your enemy's base and absolutely destroy them, but that's not really what I'm imagining it for. Most of the time when I see Swim Speed Up on a Slosher, it's because they're using it to go from one end of the map to another to block off the team, not kill the enemy team. If you use it to block off the enemy team from the rest of the map, then it's extremely useful. But if you're not using it for that purpose, I would suggest not using it. If you're not going to block off the enemy team, don't use it. Only use it if your intention is to block off the enemy team from the rest of the map. The reason for Sub Power Up is because the bombs are situational. But if you're on Tower Control, for example, or Splat Zones, and you want to cover an area more, if you want to kill an enemy without having to risk yourself going around the corner, you can do Sub Power Up to get a slightly larger damage radius and have a higher chance of splatting the enemy team. The reason for Ink Resistance is because the Slosher, it really doesn't paint that well. It does, but if you're trying to swim away from an enemy, the beginning path is more than lackluster. it's kind of underwhelming. So ink resistance could help with you getting away from enemy teammates, especially if you're in a pickle. The reason for sub defense up is because of the same reason. When you are in a pickle and enemies are throwing bombs at you, it's going to be extremely hard to get away. Sub defense up prevents that from happening, at least not completely, but at least to a certain degree. The reason thermal ink or haunting is good is because of the fact that sloshers can very much cash in the check on being able to track enemies. Only because of the fact their slosher has a very decent range with a lot of damage, as well as the fact that sometimes your second slosh just doesn't hit. So you could see where they're going, you could follow them, you could apply pressure to them. And that's one of those rare occurrences where I'd recommend either of those. And the reason for Object Shredder is because if somebody has beacons and you play a slosher, sloshers are already notoriously, in my opinion, pretty good at getting rid of object, but Object Shredder would make that even better. The only piece of gear that I could say has a niche use, and I wouldn't normally recommend it, but if you're a very, I want to get back into mid now, I want to get back into mid now, I want to get back into mid now. If you're a really pushy type of slosher player, I could maybe suggest drop roll, but I wouldn't put money on it because you don't have the ability to protect yourself as well as if you had a Brella or a Wola. You know, it doesn't instantly kill. You'd have to be pretty slick to have drop roller benefit. And overall, the slosher is a pretty good weapon. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. I wouldn't knock it. I would definitely try it if you're interested in any sloshers in general, because that's going to be your main way of getting into sloshers, is trying the basic one. Anyways, I am the Deuteron Doctor, and I will see you later. Bye.